Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Why not hit subscribe and maybe check out our Patreon? Let's dive into a story brought to you by Laura Brooks. I can pinpoint the exact day it all began. It was a chilly Sunday afternoon in early December, the kind where a light rain taps gently against the windows, and inside, Carol, my wife, and I had made the living room as cozy as possible. A fire crackled softly in the fireplace, casting a warm glow across the room. Carol was curled up on the couch, her legs tucked beneath her as she read a book and sipped a glass of wine. I was settled on the other couch, half watching the Giants begin what looked like an epic collapse. They were losing a 21-point lead to the Eagles. Carol stretched and stood, heading toward the kitchen. "Get me a beer, hon," I called after her. She paused and turned with a playful grin. "What's the magic word?" she teased. I wasn't in the mood for games. Not today. Work had been rough all week. The dreary weather wasn't helping, and the Giants' performance was just plain frustrating. "Just get the beer," I said bluntly. She came back without a word, but as I popped the cap, the beer exploded all over me. "What the big idea?" I sputtered. She giggled, clearly amused. "You really should have asked more politely," she said. "I'm not your maid, you know." "I know you're my wife," I shot back, half smiling, half annoyed. "Yeah, well, right now I think I'd rather have a maid. At least a maid wouldn't go shaking up my beer." She turned to face me, eyes sharp. "You're serious, aren't you?" she asked. I didn't answer, just kept staring at the TV, trying to ignore her. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," she insisted. I waved her off. Okay, have it your way," I muttered. Then, on a whim, I threw out a challenge. "I have a wager for you. Interested?" She was intrigued, so I turned fully to face her. "Go ahead, what's the bet?" she said. "You want a maid so badly? Here's your chance. If the Giants win today, next week I'll be your maid for the game. I'll get a cute little maid's outfit and serve your every need the whole time. And who knows, maybe even after. How's that sound?" It sounded fantastic. Carol is beautiful, and the idea of her in a short maid's outfit was a daydream I'd entertained more times than I'd admit. On the other hand, it seemed a little too good to be true. I figured if they lost, no big deal. Instead of me watching the game and her reading, we'd rent a long, romantic movie and spend the afternoon chatting like a couple of long-lost girlfriends. Carol's eyes lit up. "That doesn't sound so bad," she said. The Giants were scheduled to play the Lions the next week, not exactly the game of the century. This was shaping up nicely. "That's it," I said. "You just have to dress the part." "Dress the part? Are you having trouble hearing me?" She teased with a sly smile. "My girlfriends don't wear jeans and flannel shirts when visiting." That smile widened. "You want me to wear a dress?" "A dress or a nice skirt or whatever you please. Just no pants." I thought it over while the Giants still held a 21-point lead late in the third quarter. The upside, my fantasy coming true. The downside? Seemed a bit silly, but how bad could it be? If this is a bad bet, I can't see it. "Honey, you got yourself a bet," she said with a peck on my cheek, then smiled warmly before getting up to start dinner. I turned back to the game, surprised to see the Giants' lead shrink to 14 points by the commercial break between the third and fourth quarters. 2 plays later, it was tied at 28. Then, after a series of failed drives, the Eagles marched down to the Giants' 20-yard line and scored a field goal with less than 2 minutes left, taking a 31-28 lead. The Giants did nothing in the final moments, and the game was theirs. I sat stunned. Carol had won. No maid, no football game in comfort next week, and I had to wear a dress. After the game, Carol poked her head into the living room, grinning from ear to ear. "How'd the game end, honey?" "The Eagles won," I said, defeated. "That's wonderful, honey. We're going to have so much fun next week." She was practically glowing. "You're serious?" I asked. "Absolutely, dear. You would have been if you won." "Where am I even going to get a dress?" "That's your problem," she smirked as she returned to the kitchen. I couldn't stop thinking about the dress for the next couple of days. On Wednesday evening, I finally got the nerve to go to the mall, but when I spotted a neighbor in the atrium, I panicked and left immediately. Carol noticed I was late. "Doing some shopping, dear?" she asked sweetly. I said nothing and quietly ate my dinner. During the week, Carol mentioned how much she was looking forward to Sunday, asking what movie I wanted to watch. I just grunted, refusing to engage, and I think that only made her happier. It wasn't until Saturday that I finally mustered the courage to shop for the dress. I decided to hit a mega discount store a couple towns over, hoping anonymity would make it easier. I grabbed a cart and started piling it up with random stuff: duct tape, athletic socks, giant bags of potato chips, windshield washer fluid, and then, to my horror, a big, ugly, flowery house dress that zipped up the front, the kind my grandmother used to wear. Maybe I could play this for laughs, I thought. I found the largest size, a 28, since I had no clue about sizing, shoved it in the cart and headed to checkout. No alarms went off. The girl rang up everything and bagged it. I drove home, dreading the inevitable. Game day arrived. I got dressed as usual, had breakfast, ran errands, and puttered around the house. Carol did the same, but with a noticeable bounce in her step while I dragged mine. She kept looking at me, smiling, and it was starting to get under my skin. 10 minutes before kickoff, she asked, "Aren't you forgetting something, dear?" I shuffled off to the bedroom, grumbling, and pulled out the house dress from the closet. I stripped off my jeans and flannel, slipped the monstrosity on over my t-shirt and boxers, zipped it up, and threw on a pair of white sweat socks. Glancing in the mirror, I looked from chest level down like my grandmother. "Ta-da!" I shouted, bursting into the living room. Carol just stared. "You're kidding." No. You wanted me in a dress, I'm in a dress." She sighed quietly. "You missed the whole point. I wanted a quiet, intimate, warm, lovely, romantic day, and you turned this into a stupid, pointless, idiotic joke." I was speechless. "I thought it'd be fun. Maybe shake things up a bit." She shook her head. "You're such a selfish idiot. Take that ridiculous thing off." I did as she asked, standing silently as she stared at the fireplace, then abruptly got up and left the house. 10 minutes later, I heard her car start and drive off. I redressed and turned on the game, but my heart wasn't in it. When she returned an hour later, she glanced at me with a snort, beer in hand, Giants on the TV, and walked straight upstairs. We didn't speak the rest of the day. Sleeping next to her felt like sharing a bed with an igloo. For days, our conversation was limited to curt exchanges. "Pass the salt." "Have you seen the paper?" And "Can't you pick up after yourself?" accompanied by a pair of dirty socks lobbed in my direction. I was in trouble, and the only way out, I decided, was to turn back the clock a week. Some things were easy. I picked up cheese and crackers, a nice Chardonnay, an expensive champagne, and a bundle of wood for the fireplace. The hard part was facing the dress again. I realized I couldn't just grab a dress off the rack because I had no idea about sizing. I'd need a salesgirl's help, but how to ask without sounding like a total weirdo? After wrestling with it for a day, I decided to be honest, hoping the truth would spare me some embarrassment. I chose a mall 20 miles away for anonymity and aimed for a big department store, thinking Macy's might be less intimidating. It was Thursday evening, not busy, but walking past the cosmetics counters and shoe racks filled me with dread. When I finally found the dress department, I paced nervously before stepping in. A pretty young blonde approached with a bright smile. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked. This was it. I cleared my throat. Yes. I lost a bet to my wife on last week's Giants game, and now I have to watch this week's game in drag. She giggled, blushing a little, and so did I. "I don't know sizes or anything, so I need all the help I can get." She smiled again, but hesitated. "I'm going to have to get my supervisor, sir. I've never fitted a man before. Do you mind?" I nodded, mortified but determined. Moments later, the supervisor appeared, a mid-40s woman with a perfectly styled blonde hairdo and a nameplate that read Mrs. Kelleher. I explained my predicament. She smiled the entire time, but gently informed me, "I'm afraid we can't help you here, sir. You need to go to the women's department." Confused, I said, "Isn't this the women's department?" "No, sir," she said patiently. "This is the Mrs. Dress department. The main women's department is on the second floor, or you might try one of the other stores in the mall, catering to larger sizes." Then she walked away, leaving me to slink out, completely embarrassed. Wandering the mall, avoiding eye contact, I stopped at a smaller shop called Laura Brown's. A sign read, "Clothes for real women, in sizes for real women." I hesitated, then stepped inside. An attractive woman in tailored slacks and a navy blazer greeted me warmly. "Can I help you?" she asked. I blurted the same story again. Her eyes twinkled. "Do you know your size?" she asked gently. "No, I'll need your help." "That's no problem at all," she said cheerfully. "Did you have an idea of what you wanted?" My brain went blank. "No, a dress, I guess. Something simple." She shook her head kindly. "I'd recommend against a dress. Most won't fit right. You'd look blousy. A skirt and a nice blouse or sweater might be better. Comfortable? Not too revealing?" I nodded, grateful for the honesty. She leaned in and whispered, "You know, wearing a skirt isn't going to kill you. If you're going to do this, you might as well have some fun." For the first time, I smiled. She asked if I'd shave my legs, which caught me off guard. If you shave, you can wear pantyhose, which gives you more options. If not, tights will do. But some outfits won't look right with tights. I blanched. We agreed to assume tights for now so I could decide later. She disappeared into the store and came back holding an outfit. A soft, dark brown skirt with a paisley border near the hem and a light tan mock turtleneck sweater. I breathed a sigh of relief and reached for my wallet. "You'll have to try it on," she said gently. I stared at her, overwhelmed. "We won't know if it fits unless you try." She handed me the outfit and pointed to the dressing room. The dressing room door didn't reach the floor or ceiling, and I wondered if anyone would notice my hairy legs and socks sticking out underneath. I stripped off my clothes, stepped into the skirt. It wouldn't go past my butt until I found the zipper, and slipped on the sweater. I looked in the mirror and felt like hell. But what did I expect? "How are you doing in there?" she called softly. Okay, I guess," I replied. She opened the door and gave me a critical once-over. "Ladies usually wear their zippers in the back." She yanked my skirt around, accidentally pulling my boxers too, causing an embarrassing rearrangement. "That's better," she said. "Though this skirt's a bit big, you might want to try one size smaller." She left the door open and went to grab a smaller skirt. I closed the door quickly, but she returned moments later, opening it again. "Try this one. Remember, zipper in the back." I swapped skirts, zipped it up with some difficulty, and she nodded approvingly. Then she suggested tucking in the sweater and added a wide belt with a big brass buckle and a scarf that matched the skirt's pattern. She draped the scarf artfully, and suddenly the outfit wasn't so bad. The fabric felt soft, flowing gently from calves to neck, though the sweater hung straight like a cylinder, hiding what should have been a waist and chest. Catherine smiled at me. "See? Not so bad, right?" I smiled shyly back. "I guess these will do." She shook her head. "Not yet. You'll need tights, shoes, underwear, maybe some jewelry. I'll get your tights while you get dressed." She winked and walked off. "Unless you want to wear those home again," she teased, nodding at my socks. Back in the dressing room, I slipped into my clothes and returned to the counter. Catherine handed me a slim box of chocolate brown tights. "They'll complement your skirt perfectly," she said. "Thanks, I'll try to get everything together." The total was more than I'd expected. She processed my credit card and gave me a card application and a 15% off coupon for next time. "There's a store 5 doors down called Under It All for underwear," she said. "Department stores might not have what you need, and there are several shoe stores around here." As I left, she smiled warmly. "Relax. You're not the first man I've helped in here, and you won't be the last." I stepped out, unsure whether to feel relieved or embarrassed. Leaving the store, the weight of everything settled on me all at once. Not just the hefty price tag or the thick bag filled with unfamiliar fabric, but the surreal reality of what I had agreed to. I was about to step into a whole new world, one that felt both thrilling and utterly terrifying. The thought of dressing up like this, especially in front of Carol, made my stomach churn with nerves and excitement in equal measure. I found myself wandering the mall, clutching the bag tightly, feeling like a secret agent on a mission too bizarre to be believed. Every reflection in the glass windows, every passerby who glanced in my direction, seemed to magnify my awkwardness. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to wear a dress in front of my wife and watch the game like this? The laughter and teasing that had once seemed lighthearted now felt like a challenge carved deep into my chest. As I drove home that evening, the late summer sky was already darkening, the kind of dusk that makes the world feel quieter, more introspective. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, thoughts swirling between dread and a flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, this gamble would turn into something unexpectedly good. Carol greeted me with her usual warmth when I walked in, but I could see the spark of mischief in her eyes, a reminder that she knew exactly what was coming. The night stretched ahead, heavy with anticipation, as I peeked nervously at the contents of the bag on the couch, imagining what I would look like transformed. Part of me wanted to retreat, to shove the whole thing back into the bag and pretend the bet never happened. But the other part, the part that knew the stakes, urged me forward. I could almost hear Carol's playful voice urging me to embrace it, to surprise her, to prove that sometimes losing can be the start of something better. The next day dawned with a crispness in the air, a perfect contrast to the swirling storm inside me. I stood in front of the mirror, the clothes from Laura Brown's laid out on the bed behind me like a mysterious promise. Slowly, carefully, I peeled off the familiar layers, the jeans, the flannel, the comfort of my usual identity, and slid into the skirt and sweater. The fabric felt strange against my skin, softer than anything I had worn before, but somehow comforting in its own way. I tugged the skirt up, zipped it carefully, and felt the belt cinch me in, giving shape where I had none. The scarf draped over my shoulder added a touch of elegance I hadn't expected to carry. For a moment, I caught my reflection and saw something unfamiliar staring back, a version of myself that was vulnerable but strangely empowered. The tights hugged my legs, smoothing out the rough edges I had worried about, and I realized that maybe, just maybe, this could work. When Carol walked in, her smile was radiant, lighting up the room in a way I hadn't seen since the bet was made. She circled me slowly, her eyes tracing every line of the outfit, and then she laughed, a rich, joyful sound that eased the tension knotted in my chest. "See? I told you it wouldn't be so bad," she said, her voice soft but teasing. I caught her hand and felt the warmth spread through me, a quiet affirmation that this was more than just a bet or a joke. It was a moment where we connected differently, where the usual rules were bent, and we could play with identity, humor, and love all at once. We spent the afternoon watching the game, not as adversaries, but as partners in this odd new dance. She served me snacks, poured me wine, and every so often she'd glance over with that same mischievous sparkle, reminding me that sometimes the best stories are the ones you never expected to live. That night, as the game played on and the fire crackled softly, I found myself thinking about how strange life could be, how the smallest wagers and wildest ideas sometimes led to the most unforgettable memories. The dress wasn't just fabric, it was a symbol of trust, vulnerability, and a willingness to step outside comfort zones. And in that moment, I realized that losing the bet wasn't really losing at all. It was winning a new way to be close, to laugh, and to share something utterly unique with the person I loved most. The warmth between us wasn't just from the fire, it was something deeper, A gentle glow that promised no matter what came next, we'd face it together with humor and heart.